This is our November 7th, 2024 Bowling Green Warren County Planning Commission. And before we get started tonight, if you are here for item number 3, Cook Properties, 131 LLC, care of Donald Cook, the applicant, and Christian Life Center of Bowling Green, this has been postponed. So if you were here for that, we just wanted to make you aware of that. So Matthew, if you would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Drain?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gay? Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volkert?
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Matthew. Commissioners, you have the minutes of our October 17th meeting in your packet. Are there any questions? Hearing none, would call for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks?
Abstain.
Commissioner Vitale?
Abstain.
Commissioner Volkert?
Abstain.
Commissioner Drain?
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren?
Yes, sir. Commissioners, you have the subdivision and site development plans in your packet. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Ben, do we have any new business or old business?
No, sir.
All right, we will begin our public hearing. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Warren. I request that you order that the record for tonight include all relevant statutory and regulatory provisions, the Commission's entire file for each application on tonight's docket, and the qualifications of each of the staff witnesses who will testify before you. And if you would please administer the oath to those witnesses.
Swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Our first item tonight is 2024-01 TCO and 2024-V23 Cello Partnership and Verizon Wireless and the Towers LLC Vertical Bridge, care of Clark Quinn, have filed an application for approval of wireless communications tower, cell tower, located on a portion of the property at 1293 Old Union Church Road. The applicant has also filed a concurrent application to request a variance of 670 feet from the 1,000-foot setback requirement of any residential district, structure, or use. The property is zoned Ag. Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting for the identified location on Old Union Church Road in July. There are their exhibits. We will look to the aerial for that location. The current zoning is Ag. Current land use is also agriculture, and the future land use is also agriculture. And so we will move to their exhibit overall. And to reiterate their requests, they have filed an application for approval of a telecommunications tower on the property. The proposed height of the tower is 245 feet, 255 feet including the lightning rod. As part of this application, they are also requesting a variance of 670 feet from the minimum setback of 1,000 feet from a residential district, structure, or use. Looking down to the compliance with the flume, the property is designated as agriculture on the flume. A zoning map amendment was not required for this application, and staff found that the proposed tower complies with the goals and objectives outlined in the comprehensive plan regarding telecommunications facilities, but has noted points to consider regarding the proposed variance. With that, we'll look to the bottom of page 1. The proposed tower complies with the majority of the site characteristics review criteria and the majority of the review criteria for site design, with the exception of the setback from a residential district or use, for which the applicants have requested the variance that we discussed. There are some points to consider that we'll look to on page 6 of your staff report regarding the proposed variance application. The applicants have supplied a narrative at the top of page 6 to address the findings required for granting a variance, and that's there for your all's review. And there are points to consider. The applicants have not provided supporting information as to how the requested variance arises from special circumstances which do not generally apply to land in the general vicinity or in the same zone. The property is not exceptionally narrow, shallow, or oddly shaped. There are no exceptional topographic conditions or other extraordinary or exceptional situations applicable to the property where the strict application of the dimensional requirements would cause practical difficulties to or exceptional and undue hardship upon the owner of such property. The applicants have stated that the proposed tower location would be least disruptive to existing agricultural activity, but note that financial disadvantage to the property owner is no proof of hardship within the purpose of zoning. The parent tract is around 114 acres. The applicants could have submitted an alternate tower location that complies with the required setback outside of the setback from the existing residence that is located on the parent tract where the tower is proposed. With that note, we'll look back to page 1 to staff's recommendation of approval pending public hearing testimony and discussion tonight. And I will also make a note that you all have a letter of opposition that should have been placed at your places. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jenny. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
I think my only question is, if I remember correctly, we really can't stop a cell phone tower from coming, but we can maybe have discussion about the variance. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
So that's really the only thing we're to talk about is the variance.
Right, the location and variance.
Because we really can't stop a cell phone tower from going there.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Volker. Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
All right. Is the applicant or the representative here? Yes, sir. If you would state your name and address, please, sir.
Absolutely. Commissioners, for the record, Russell Brown, an attorney with the law firm of Clark Quinn, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis.
Swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'll be brief. The staff report is very thorough, as is typical of the times I've appeared before you, but I will kind of walk through a couple of things and speak specifically as to the variance and why this location is necessary. As mentioned, this is the application of both Verizon Wireless and the Towers LLC. Towers is a custom co-location builder, a national tower company who is building this site on behalf of Verizon Wireless. This is, as staff mentioned, this is a request of a uniform application for a 255-foot tower. I'll jump to the discussions about the variance specifically, talk just a little bit about why this area in the county is necessary. As to the variance specifically, our goals when citing these is to do a handful of things. One is to try to utilize any existing drives to have as few new existing drives, curb cuts as possible when we're talking about access to the site. We also attempt to utilize, whenever possible, any existing vegetation on a site that might be helpful in screening the tower base and the tower base equipment from surrounding properties. On this site, you do have a stand of trees immediately north to the proposed location, as well as kind of to the north and east of the location. We also are looking to make sure that we're out of wetlands. We're not interfering with any drainage tiles that might be installed on the parent tract as well. And then obviously trying to comply as best as possible with all of the underlying zoning requirements. So we have submitted as part of the record two things that I think that I would call your attention to. First, we have submitted a fall zone letter from an engineer who is licensed in the state of Kentucky, which indicates that though this tower is 255 foot in height, it is designed to fall at a narrower or smaller area, smaller radius, to fall approximately 185 feet in height. That is done through design, that is done through how deep we might put borings. The steel is reinforced at various locations to comply with that fall zone. So your setback requirements are the height of the tower plus 50 feet to a property line. So we believe that by providing that fall zone letter that meets plus the 50 feet, we have complied with the setback to the property line. You do also have a distance to a residential zone or a use. The nearest property is residentially zoned or utilized. And so we do need, that's part of the variance that we need in this location. We have submitted a letter from that property owner of no objection to this proposed location. So we went to the process of getting there, showing them plans, showing them where we were going to provide, how we're going to install this, and that is included in your staff report. I believe it's approximately page 37 of the staff report that I have. So those are the nearest property owners to this location. We believe that this complies with the spirit of the ordinance, though not with the letter of the ordinance, obviously. At this location, when we are locating these in agricultural areas or agriculturally utilized areas, we're attempting to disrupt agricultural use to the minimum degree as possible, both from the tower site itself as well as from the drive that accesses that. You have to have drive, you have to have utilities that are run to that. Most communities in Indiana and Kentucky where I practice are very protective of agricultural utilization of properties. It is high volume, high value, both to the community at large as well as to the landowner. And so we've attempted to do that here by running the access drive on the perimeter of the agricultural utilized property and having as little area disturbed as possible without going into the middle of the field where you would have to create a drive that would have to be maneuvered around for agricultural purposes. So we do believe that because of tiling, because of other attempting to utilize the trees that exist there on the north side to try to work with screening from off-site, we have attempted to locate this in a way that's least impactful and least, while complying with as much of the ordinance as possible, is least impactful to surrounding uses. We do believe that this site, we have considered the likely impacts of nearby land uses and values and concluded that there is not a more suitable solution for which the coverage and the capacity objectives identified by Verizon Wireless can be met other than this location. And I'll talk just very briefly about why this location. Verizon has identified a kind of a gap along I-65, specifically between mile markers 16 and 17 on I-65, that this tower would seek to plug. There is a tower to the north that they did look at whether or not that would meet the same coverage objectives for co-location purposes. In their packet, in the materials that we provided, there is an exhibit, a representation of what would be covered by that proposed tower versus what this location would do. And that graphically shows a pretty dramatic difference between those two locations, both from where it is location and what center line is available. There's only a 170-foot center line there, while we have a 240-foot center line at this location. You have a very long agenda. I will be happy to answer questions that the commission has, but otherwise I would incorporate our materials into the record, including our findings of fact, and ask for your favorable approval of both our uniform application and the variance before you.
Mr. Cook, the property it's going on is about 125 acres?
114 approximately.
114
Yes.
acres, okay. So why the variance? I understand the tire and the falling component, but if you're on 115 acres, why a variance?
Yeah, so there is, if you look, it's page...
And the reason for asking that is we will hear another case again at some point in time, and that is our regulations.
Understood. Yeah, so I did not, I would look at the various residential uses or districts that are nearby, and I believe there is not a location on the property where you could comply with 1,000-foot separation to all residential buildings that are nearby. If you move it to the south, there is residential uses both to the southwest and the southeast that are not on the landowner's property. If you move it further to the directly east, you are then would be on the landowner's property. You also get into, there is some wetlands in that area, and so that's part of the reason that it wasn't moved kind of further to the east along kind of that northern boundary.
So are you're saying really wherever you guys would have to move the tower on that property, you would be here asking for some.
That is my belief, that there's not, I don't know that there's a location on this property that's not in wetlands, that's not disturbing mature trees, which is another provision of your ordinance, that we would not be asking for a variance of some sort related to that 1,000-foot setback. If you'll notice, that tower location, you have about 1,200 feet to the property to the southwest that's on the other side of Morris Road. On the west side of Morris Road, there's one on the corner there that you would be moving closer to. You're about 1,800 feet from it. And then you're about 20, as proposed, we're about 2,000 square feet from the one that's on Old Union Chapel, kind of the southeast. So those locations, if we got there, we would still if we went to the center of that field, my belief is that we would be within that 1,000 feet in almost any direction at that location. And we can't go to the wooded area to the north because my understanding is that is wetlands area.
Mr. Cook, if I could I interrupt you just for a second? Let me get some input from staff. My question for staff is this. Personally, I would rather see him destroy a tree than have the variance. So I rarely do this, but I'm kind of tipping my hand here. I think I'm going to ask him in just a moment, does he want to move forward if he doesn't get the variance? So this is a question for staff. If he has cited one of the reasons for the variance is disturbance of a tree or a tree canopy. Is that acceptable in this case if they do disturb the tree canopy?
The specific use standards, I think, should be included in here somewhere. Possibly. There's something in the specific use standards for tower placement that you're supposed to minimally impact vegetation. The statement that the tower could not be placed on the property without needing a variance, that is accurate. However, we did note, and Jenny referred to this on page 6, that there is an alternate location now outside of where the wetland areas are. I can't speak to that, but basically there is a location on the property where it wouldn't comply with the setback from the existing residence that's on the parent tract, but that outside of the residence on the property where the tower is located, that it could meet the setback from the other residential properties.
Okay.
So you would still need a variance, but it would be from the home that's on the property that's
from the landowner,
where the tower is going to be located. Yes.
That was my understanding. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. So Mr. Cook, I think this is my question for you. And as I say, I don't want to get ahead of this. I don't have any opposition to the tower, but I do have reservation about the variance. So I'll go ahead and tell you up front, I could not support the variance. And I think it's up to you. And I'm only speaking as one commissioner, but that would be a decision for you as to whether you want to move forward tonight.
Mr. Brown is my last name, not Cook. But
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry.
No, I'm at the Clark Quinn Law Firm, so
That's all right.
That's all right. I have no authority to withdraw my petition tonight on that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that our attempt, by going to the neighboring property owner, who would be the property owner within 1,000 feet, of getting their letter of no opposition, was to address, the very issue that you're raising, which is they're the ones that are most impacted, arguably, by this request. And so that's why we've went and made that request. I can also tell you that a move of more than 100 feet or 150 feet will require a restart of the due diligence process for this. So when we go through this process, we do it with a very specific kind of Latin long, and it is 6 to 9 months to get here with that. So I can tell you that my client would prefer to have a decision.
So, Mr. Brown, if you don't have that authority and this variance doesn't pass, then
You're going to have to start over again anyway.
yeah.
What about, let me ask this question. What about we voted on the tower and we didn't vote on the variance tonight?
I would rely on your staff on how your approvals are drafted. Typically, they
So
are,
it would be approved for it would be approved for the 114 acres, but at some point they would have to come back and ask for a variance if it was going to be outside the 1,000 feet or inside the 1,000 feet.
Well, that's what they're asking for
I
tonight.
know, but I'm saying maybe it doesn't take them as long to come back.
Right.
If they already have approval.
Yeah.
If it passed
Then,
tonight, I'm
then
saying
they could,
it would,
they
but
could
if
go
it
back and
passed
negotiate the
tonight,
variance.
Then they could come back just for a variance.
Well, I don't know that they would be able to come back to this board for the variance because
That would be
the
Board of
planning,
Adjustments.
yeah, the planning commission can only hear a variance if it's filed concurrently with another application.
And that's what we're reviewing tonight, is the variance.
No, we're reviewing
Concurrently with the
both.
cell tower application,
Yeah.
yes.
So how can you separate the two, I guess is my
We're
question.
going to you vote on the cell tower on the piece of land, and then
It's going to be two separate votes anyway, I think. If we have the vote and the variance is declined, won't they still have approval for the cell tower?
They would, but there's nowhere on the property that the tower can go that can meet the required setback.
Got it, okay.
They couldn't get a building permit without the variance.
Right,
And so they wouldn't be able to get the building permit without the variance,
correct.
okay?
can I ask a follow-up question
Absolutely.
of staff?
Absolutely.
How long is there an expiration on our approvals of the uniform application? Some jurisdictions have an expiration date.
We don't have an expiration.
Okay. Well, and as long as it is an approval for this property, if that's the way it's construed, then I would ask that you move forward tonight with both matters.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has any questions or opposition to this request? All right. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Yes, sir.
I'm Eddie Fisher. My wife and I own
Mr.
more.
Fisher, we need to swear you in.
Yes.
Your name and address, please, sir.
Eddie Fisher, 920 Pepperidge Drive, Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Mr. Fisher, you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My wife and I, who can't be here, she had a minor procedure tonight, can't be here, but we own Morris Meadows, that is the property just north of this existing property. And we do not object to a cell tower being placed in that area. We realize that's needed for the growth. But what our concern is this will affect the future value of our land by placing something within 1,000 foot of our property line. Currently have no plans for that, but just want to protect our economic value. What we feel the reason for this site is that if you look at the short entrance into the right-of-way and the property minimizes the 115 acre farm owner's land value. They're getting the benefit of being able to fully farm their property and reap those benefits in addition to receiving the lease on the tower. The third point that I want to bring out is I couldn't understand why a residential owner would grant and approve that waiver, because having, what I understand, a cell tower within 1,000 feet of somebody's property could potentially have health effects. And it's my understanding that Mr. Mulder that owns that property is a son-in-law of the property landowner. So they have, I believe, a vested interest to place it there.
Eddie, I will say, with all the applications we've seen and the data that's been brought to us, the health concerns aren't there.
Okay.
I think that's been, stated to us on numerous occasions. And like I started with this, we really don't have the power not to pass this.
Oh, and
But
yes.
the variance is a different situation. So tonight, I think we'll vote on it, on the cell tower on the piece of property. And then I think we'll come back at some point, or they'll come back to somebody and deal with the variance.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Anyone else in the audience tonight? Yes, sir. Anything different?
A little bit.
All right, come up to the microphone, please, sir. And your name and address?
Brian Fisher, 680 Covington Street.
Okay, Mr. Fisher, swear to tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'm the landowner to the west of the property on the left side of Morris Road in the green triangle. Just a couple of points on that, like the woods up there to the north that have the two house structures that I believe belong to the property owner where the tower could be put. that wouldn't violate any of the 1,000 feet have recently been logged. So the issue with destroying a canopy and stuff like that, you just had that issue kind of taken care of with their logging that property. And then also, I don't think that's true wetlands. There is a lake back there, but it's not swamp ground. The stuff to the west is swamp, and that's just, it's a pond. So if you go out there and look at it, I think that that portion of the property back on the stuff that they own is fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, any other comments from the audience tonight? Any other comments? All right, commissioners, we have, first would be to approve or disapprove or deny the telecommunications tower, and then we will vote on the variance. So call for a motion, please.
Mr. Warren, I might like to discuss a few of the mechanics of this. It sounds to me like you're inclined to take a vote on the uniform application. What I want to suggest to you is that if you're inclined not to take action on the variance tonight, that you make a motion to recess the hearing on that variance and reconvene it at another time for two reasons. First of all, by doing it that way, you don't start the 30-day within which to appeal the variance denial if you were to deny it.
Okay.
And secondly, the fact that you've begun the variance hearing here and you're postponing it to another day, it takes away any argument that you should have deferred that application to the Board of Adjustments at this point rather than going forward with it yourself.
So Ham, my question is, I understood Mr. Brown to request that we take action or we vote on both that are before us. Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, I don't know whether you did, but I did not hear Mr. Brown suggest that. Mr. Brown, what?
I did suggest that I would, our request would be to move forward with the application. And the reality for us is if we have to move the site, there's a significant amount of due diligence that has to be redone. And we would be refiling at a different location anyway, or we would be able to commence, any judicial review that might be the client may choose to pursue. So I think that our request would be that you go ahead and move forward with both, especially understanding that the uniform application applies to the entirety of the property and doesn't expire. That would be our application. At least we know we are trying to move forward on a site that is viable.
I have a question for Mr. Brown. What is the anticipated construction or installation time for this tower?
Make sure I understand your question. The date we plan to start or how long it takes once it commences?
That's correct.
The second question?
The second.
Okay. It usually is, stacking is a very quick process. Usually you're talking 90 days or so, 90 to 120 days from the time they kind of come out and get utilities to the site and then start construction. So you do your access drive, level the pad, and then stack, so probably 90 days. As far as where this is in priority, I would not be here if this was not a priority site. So that usually means that we're 12 to 18 months would be the anticipated start date.
Thank you. So Hamp, are you agreeable with?
So it sounds like we're going to, if the first one passes, then we will vote on the second one, and if it doesn't pass, then they will take the lines and bring it back with a variance to another board.
That's not the case, because once you vote to deny this application for a variance, then there wouldn't be any remedy other than an appeal to circuit court, or wait a year.
So I guess the question, Mr. Brown, would you be okay if we voted on the first to approve the tower on the site, and then we tabled, or
He
we,
can withdraw it,
you can withdraw the
the
variance.
variance application, or you can vote to table it.
I don't have authority to approve a withdrawal. I cannot stop the board from tabling a matter if that was the commission's desire.
I think you've heard from Hamp, if it doesn't pass, it'll be a year.
I understand. I don't have client authority to withdraw the variance.
Do we have authority to withdraw the variance?
Why would we?
No, well, you have no authority to withdraw that application, but
Right.
you do have the authority to make a finding that you're unable to address all the issues before you on the variance tonight and table your consideration of that to a future meeting.
Table the variance or
Variance.
yeah, okay. So does everybody understand that? Okay.
So in that case, do we still vote on the tower?
Yes.
Yes,
That would be my
yes.
thought.
And then if it's so approved by the board, then someone would make a recommendation to table the
Okay.
variance. Okay? Everybody, we all clear? Mind's clear? All right, we'll call for a motion, please, on the first item for the cell tower.
Make a motion to approve the proposed telecommunications tower, docket number 2024-01TCO, based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed telecommunications tower application is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed telecommunications tower application is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion for the cell tower is approved, and so we have basically three options to approve the variance request, deny the variance request, or table it.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to table the variance request.
Second.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. So the motion to table the variance request has been approved.
I know you all are ordinarily used to setting the time and date for that hearing that would reconvene on the variance in the motion tonight. I, however, think that the applicant's unable to tell us when they'll be ready to go forward on that, and so we'll re-advertise the hearing on the variance once we get the material in on that addresses that issue.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next item tonight is 2024-09 DP Orange Court LLC, care of Nick Patel, has filed an application to amend the general development plan conditions for 3.99 acres located in the northeast corner of Orange Court and Cherry Farm Lane. The area is subject to this application is currently zoned highway business with the general development plan. Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting in August of this year for the property on Orange Court and Cherry Farm Lane. We will look to their aerial for that perspective. Current zoning is highway business. Current land use is vacant. I think the computer might be a little lagging, so it's vacant. And the future land use is commercial. And yes, it might just be frozen, so we will move, there we go. So the applicant is proposing to amend the development plan for 3.99 acres. The purpose of the application is to revise the allowable square footage for structures, add metal as potential building material, and add potential for a multi-tenant sign along Orange Court. You will see that there's quite a lot of mark-throughs on their development plan conditions. And that's more of housekeeping items and some updates to address the current comprehensive plan. So we will look back to their concept. The development history, a portion of the property was rezoned to RM3 in 1992, and the whole property was rezoned from Ag, RM3, and Highway Business to Highway Business in 2009. And then looking down to staff's recommendation, the proposal does comply with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process, remains consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. And with that, staff's recommendation is for approval pending public hearing testimony and discussion tonight. And that's all that I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
So I guess my only question, Jenny, is tell me about the metal. What's the change there?
So if you look over to, I believe it is on page 4, or bottom of page 3, moving on to page 4. The front facade of all buildings, or improvements on the property shall be constructed of brick, masonry, wood, and then they added the option for metal, glass, stucco, EIFS, or similar modern construction materials. The front facade of all buildings on the property will be constructed of brick, stone masonry, or other cementitious material. Use of other building materials will be limited to side and rear facades, soffits and trim. Plain face block will not be permitted as an external facade. So they've added the option for metal, but it will not be on the front.
Got it. All right, very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, Commissioners, any other questions for staff? All right, thank you. Is the applicant here or their representative? Anything you would like to add?
Rodney McGahee, 2053 Dyford Road.
Swear to tell the truth,
Yes, sir.
Rodney.
I do. Yeah.
Anything you would like to add?
I don't have anything to add. I believe the applicant is here.
So Rodney, just to clarify,
You're good? Okay.
just to clarify, no metal on the front.
That's correct.
Got it. I'm good. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Rodney. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or opposition to this request? Okay. Hearing none, Commissioners would call for a motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the proposed general development plan amendment docket number 2024-09DP. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed general development plan amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Further, I also find that there have been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area of the property in question, and I request that the findings of fact and recommendation include a summary of the evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion's approved and it's Planning Commission final action. Our next item tonight is 2024-43Z County. Teresa Faulkner, the applicant, and WV and Georgia Cowles, the owners, have filed an application for zone 4.663 acres located at 797 Wayne White Road from agriculture to RE residential estate and RE rural residential with a general development plan. Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting back in September for the properties on Wayne Watt Road. There's the aerial perspective. Current zoning of the property is ag. Current land use is single-family residential, and the flume designation is agriculture. And there are some photos for the area in which the property is located. And there's their concept again. They are proposing to rezone 4.663 acres from ag to residential estate and rural residential in order to create an additional building lot. Looking down to the bottom of the page, the proposal does comply with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. Staff has noted considerations regarding prime farmland, and so we'll look over to page 2 and to simply note that about half of the property is classified as prime farmland. Looking back to page 1 with our staff's recommendation is for approval pending public hearing testimony and discussion tonight. And I'm happy to answer any questions of the commission.
Commissioners, any questions for this proposal?
I just have one, Mr. Chair. 1,300 square feet. Are the other homes in the area similar in size or?
Yes, so looking to page 3 under the surrounding architectural features, they range in size from around 1,000 square feet to 2,300 square feet. The median home size is 1,261 square feet, and an average is around 1,396 square feet. So it's right in that range between the median and average.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And so I do have one more question. I thought the minimum setback was 50 feet, not 40. Am I wrong about that?
The minimum.
Front yard setback,
Yes.
it's typically 25.
Yes.
Okay, typically 25. So 40 is plenty for what we're looking at here and consistent with what else is on the street. All right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Commissioners, any other questions? Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you.
Is the applicant here or anything they would like to add? All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has an opposition or a question for this proposal? Okay, hearing none, commissioners would call for a motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with a condition upon the general development plan document number 2024-43ZCO. Based on the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zone map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion to include the summary of evidence and testimonies presented to the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion is approved, and final action in 21 days unless a request is made to the legislative body to hear the item. Our next item tonight is 2024-44Z County GVTP Development LLC. The applicant and Ronald Hargett, the owner, have filed an application to rezone 102 acres located on Nashville Road, approximately 504 feet north of Fuller Drive, from agriculture and RE residential estate to general business, RS1A, single-family residential, RE residential estate, and RS1D, single-family residential, with the general development plan. Ms. Hurt?
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application meeting back in August for the property you just referenced, located on Nashville Road. This property should look somewhat familiar. It was before you back in September for a future land use map amendment. And so now the applicants are back for the zoning request, and they have applied to rezone roughly 102 acres to multiple zones. You can see on the front here, the front area is proposed to be rezoned to general business. And then we also have a request for residential, attached single-family here, and then detached single-family back here. And then I will jump on to the aerial view for your reference. Then you can see the current zoning is agriculture. The current land use is agriculture. And then the future land use map, you can see where it was amended back in September. It's currently mixed-use residential and low-density residential. And then here are some photos of the property that I'll flip through. And then I'll leave the concept plan up in case we need to reference that. But in our review, we did find that the proposal complies with the majority of the criteria that we assessed in the review process, and we found it to be generally compatible with the surrounding area. We did have a few things for your consideration. I'm going to touch on those quickly. The first of those on page number 2, loss of prime farmland. We've just noted that about 50% of the property is designated as prime farmland. We also have a point for your consideration on page number 3, looking at the proposed hours of operation for the commercial portion of the development. So on page 3, looking at the surrounding land uses, there are existing and planned residential uses that are immediately adjacent to the general business areas that are depicted on the preliminary development plan. The applicants are proposing unlimited hours of operation in the instance of a convenience store, and hours of operation from 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. for all other uses.
The nearest convenience store in Rich Pond, the Crossroads IGA, located at the entrance to South Glen Gables, closes at 10 p.m. and is not open 24 hours a day. The original development plan conditions that were submitted limited hours of operation for non-convenience store uses from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Next, just beneath that, looking in the architectural features, looking at the home sizes and garage requirements, the homes in Idle Acres, they range in size from 1,188 square feet to 3,130 square feet, with a median home size of 1,700 square feet. And a majority of those homes have an attached carport or garage. And then for homes fronting Hossel Street, I should go back and actually, let me go back to the map really quick. So Idle Acres would be the neighborhood down to the south here, these properties here, and then Hossel Street is the street over here. So just for reference in the report there. So for homes fronting Hossel Street, homes range in size from 964 square feet to 2,470 square feet, with a median home size of 1,499 square feet. And a majority of those homes also have a garage or carport, either attached or detached. And the applicants are proposing that each single-family detached residence have at least a one-car garage, and all single-family detached residences shall have a minimum of 1,100 square feet of heated living space, exclusive of porches and garages. And all single-family attached residences shall have a minimum of 900 square feet of heated living space, exclusive of porches and garages. And we've just noted that the proposed minimum home sizes are less than the 1,500 square foot median that is identified, although the bulk and scale of the attached single-family residential buildings will be similar to some of the larger residences that are identified in the area. And the single-family attached residences are not proposed to incorporate a garage. And then last, under the building materials, the majority of the homes in Idle Acres have brick exteriors with brick foundations. A handful of homes have vinyl exteriors with stone or block foundations. Homes on Hossel Street have exteriors comprised of a mix of brick, vinyl, and aluminum siding, and a majority of foundations are brick or stone, with a handful utilizing split-face block. The applicants are proposing for the residential portion of the development that all exterior facades of principal structures be constructed with exteriors of vinyl, stone, brick, LP smart siding, EIFS, or other cementitious or modern masonry materials, and vinyl is not the prevalent material in nearby neighborhoods. So staff suggested that the applicants consider limiting the percentage that can be utilized for each structure. However, the applicants indicated that they did not want to change the material requirements and left them as proposed. So those are, one other thing, sorry. Last thing, on page 8, there's actually a typo on the first page, regarding joint recreational facilities. So turn to page 8, looking down at action item CF 6.3, which encourages shared facilities between schools and neighborhoods in order to promote cost and land efficiencies and to provide more comprehensive services to residents. I should have noted previously that Rich Pond Elementary is located just to the south. That's the green parcel that the cursor is on. And staff suggested that the applicants consider reaching out to the Warren County Public School District as to the possibility of utilizing some of the existing recreational facilities that are currently available on the Rich Pond Elementary site in conjunction with pedestrian connection between the two properties. And the applicants did agree to provide the recommended pedestrian connection, but did not acknowledge any plans for joint recreational facilities between the school and the neighborhood. I believe that is mostly everything for the staff report, but I will note that our recommendation is for approval, pending public hearing testimony and discussion. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Rachel, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I noticed that there's potential coordination between the school system and the development as far as recreation facilities. So this is not going to, this area will not have a homeowners association, right?
It may. You may want to, actually, I think somewhere in here.
The reason I asked, I noticed there's going to be a development of a pool.
Yeah, I think.
Pavilion and recreation facilities. Who's going to be responsible for them?
Yeah, so if you look in the development plan conditions, it looks like on page number, I just saw it, 6.
Page 6.
Yes, so they're requiring mandatory membership in a homeowners association for maintenance of all common
Okay,
areas.
so the association will be responsible for pool maintenance and things of that nature?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So Rachel, help me understand what we've got here. I heard you allude to single-family attached, no garage. I heard you allude to single-family with a one-car garage. And so, describe for me the single-family attached, no garage. What is that?
So that's this middle section here. And the applicants are proposing attached, single-family, what we would consider to be townhomes, where we could have up to 4 attached, single-family homes. And those are the ones where they have not required a garage.
Those are on individual deeds, though, correct?
Correct.
Got it.
That's why if you look at the concept, the lots, they look much narrower.
Got it.
Because those are planned to be townhomes.
Okay,
And then at the back portion where you see the larger lots, those would be the single-family detached properties. And those are the properties that have the requirement for at least a one-car attached garage.
okay. And did I understand you to say that the median home size for the single-family attached surrounding area was 1,500 square feet?
Generally speaking, not just, there's, I guess we didn't evaluate between attached or detached, but most of the homes in the area, I don't know of any that are attached that currently exist. So our evaluation would have just been on what's within the vicinity.
Got it.
And the median was generally 1,500. And that was for the homes fronting Hossel Street. The median in Idle Acres is actually closer to 1,700.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. And they did not address the hours of operation.
Well, it was,
Initially they did, but then they didn't.
yeah, and when they submitted their revisions, then they made a change to the hours of operation. They may be able to speak to the reasoning behind that.
All right. All right. Commissioners, any other questions for staff right now? All right, thank you. Is the applicant here or their representative?
Good evening, Chris Davenport, 921 College Street, and I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Rachel. So just a kind of bare minimum here, she's already covered most of this. 102.5 acres, we are flume compliant. The change that we had at the flume hearing recently, basically, if you remember, we just moved the demarcation a little bit east on this concept. So the frontage was already mixed use, the back was low density, and we needed that flume line to match up on this concept where the attached structures become detached structures, because we needed the attached structures in the mixed-use residential flume. So that was a change we made back in September. We're looking at about 0.7 acres of RS1A. We didn't really talk about that. The reason for that is the Hargett family who's here, they're going to continue living in their home. That's the RS1A section of this development. So that won't be developed by my client. That will be retained by Mr. Hargett and his family. You also note, just as a housekeeping measure, you've got this little sliver that's RE. That's just cleaning that up. That won't be developed either. But we needed to go ahead and get that out of ag, the original zoning. That will maintain its current use. So a few thoughts here, and I'm going to get into the materials and the hours of operation, because that's really the materials, the square footage, and the hours of operation, or the staff. Those are their notes. But I don't want to gloss over a few things I think are very germane here. In the RS1A section, we are proposing a density of 1.43 units an acre. That's kind of really not an issue at all, I don't think. The RS1D, we're at a density of 4.3 units an acre. So that's still within low density. That compares very favorably with the surrounding development. South Oaks is at 3.6. The Skis Road development, which is, if you went out Nashville Road, you took a south on Nashville Road, you took a left on Rich Pond, Rockfield Road, Skis Road would then be on your right. It's very close to this as the crow flies. That density is 5.9. I will say as an aside, Mr. Graham, to your question, that Skis Road development also has attached single-family homes in it.
Twin homes?
Twin homes, yes, sir. Same thing, although this development could have up to 4 units attached. but still single-family use, 0 lot lines. I don't have the square footage of those in front of me, but typically those are around 1,000, 1,100. That's kind of the square footage that we're usually looking at in those. So I'll get to that in a minute when I talk about this square footage, but I did want to point that out. The Tartar property a little bit south, it was rezoned. Time flies. I feel like that was just a few months ago, but it was probably a couple years ago. That property is at 10 units an acre. So density-wise, as the staff pointed out, all of the densities in their report less than us were septic developments. So again, common theme that you all hear, as a sewer stretched out south, Nashville Road, Plano Road, name your road, the densities get higher. So we fit very well with the sewer density developments. Let me talk to you a little bit about the RS1D. We're looking at 208 attached units. Those are the townhomes. Minimum would be 900 square foot. 213 detached units. Minimums are 1,100 square foot. And of course, all of those are 2 stories or less. We have proposed in the amenities, it would be managed by the HOA, a pool, a pavilion, recreational courts. My client tells me that's going to be pickleball courts, but I've just put in recreational courts because at some point pickleball may fade. I don't know. It's showing no signs of slowing up, but it's some type of recreational courts. And then we do have the pedestrian connection to Rich Pond Elementary. On that point, I will say this. I did the Carter's Crossing development before this board. I did the Brookwood Elementary development before this board. On both of those developments, those properties are elementary schools that back up to developments. I know at least with those developments, the Warren County Public Schools are happy to basically allow that connection, and they allow those developments to utilize those playgrounds. But that's completely at the discretion of Warren County Public Schools. So this application night is not dependent upon that grace. I hope they continue to allow that. In the past, Mr. McIntyre, the CFO, before this board, has made a lot of statements about how they think that's beneficial to all sides. All we can do is say we're going to build a pedestrian path up to that property line. I hope the developer can use those facilities, but that will be up to the school district. But again, as far as what we are committing to, a pool, a pavilion, recreational courts, by subdivision regs, we got double sidewalks proposed. We have to do that. So let me talk about the general business and the hours, and then I'm going to come back to the RS1D. So there was a lot of debate with the commission, the staff. They, as they usually do, they wanted to propose hours of operation. I'll point out that the 1 hour that Rachel has mentioned is on the IGA property. The wording in the report's a little peculiar. That facility closes at 10. They are not required to. And so if I can take you to the zoning map. All right, so we are here. I did a little research, and I looked at all of the HB and GB properties that extend from our property and to the south. Where the cursor is, that's the IGA facility that Rachel mentioned, okay? I identified 15 lots along Nashville Road that are GB or HB. Those addresses range from 7324 Nashville Road up to 8381 Nashville Road, which is the IGA property. There are 15 commercial lots along that stretch of either GB or HB zoning. 14 of those lots have no hours of operation restrictions. One lot does. It's the Jones lot. It's at the corner of Rich Pond, Rockfield Road. It sits right here. If you were out there today, that's the lot that has the hearses, some type of funeral business associated with it. That did have a restriction, 5 a.m. to midnight. So some of these properties I'm referring to would be the Rich Pond Hardware Store, the Rich Pond Market, the IGA. All of these HB and GB lots around the IGA, again, that is still subject to the same set of then binding elements or development conditions, whichever one it was. No time restrictions, no hours of operation. So the reason my client has proposed what they have proposed is someday this commercial property will compete with those 15 properties I've identified. I don't know the distance there, but I mean, that's got to be a half mile or less. It's just literally right down the street. And we want this property to be competitive when we market it, and we think that's only fair. The other thing I will note, and Rachel's correct, this property does adjoin, these commercial lots do adjoin residential properties, the majority of which are in our own development. If you look at all those commercial lots I've identified, they also all adjoin residential properties. And they adjoined residential properties when they were rezoned. And they were all rezoned without hours of operations restrictions. So that's my, I guess that's, I don't mean to preach too much, but that's my spiel on that. Let me talk now a little bit about the RS1D developments. And I've got a few things I want to show you. So I've received this from my client. These are some of the home elevations that they intend this is successful to develop this property with. Mr. Graham, you'll note it's kind of hard to tell. That's a block foundation home.
Is it, so are you saying that's a crawl space or that's a slab on grade?
It's, well, they'd have to speak to that, okay? But what we've done in this restriction is, you'll note in the DPC that it's 6 inches above grade, maximum, okay? Let me skip through that. These are some elevations of the attached structures. Now, these elevations have, you'll see garage doors on them. My client tells me the intention, some of the townhomes will have garages, some will not. But obviously, you set your DPCs for the minimum. So if there's going to be a single townhome built that doesn't have a garage, that cannot be a condition in the DPCs. Some examples of some floor plans. I got to skip through some of this, I'll come back to it. The other thing my clients did is, at least GVTP, Mr. Vogler, Mr. Poston, they developed about 20 years ago a development called River Bend Landing. Now, it gets a little confusing. This is not River's Edge. There's a few developments in the county that have river. This is River's Bend Landing. And what Mr. Vogler did, he pulled for me, these are MLS listings. River's Bend Landing is a comparable size home, comparable materials, as what we're proposing here. And what this shows you here is basically 20 years later, home prices in that neighborhood, 189, 229, 239, 239, 225. Some of the homes we're talking about in that neighborhood, structures like this. I think this is a good example of a neighborhood that had some flexibility with materials that has maybe become less common with the board, but 20 years down the road has succeeded. And they've succeeded in a niche that I'm going to try to explain to you tonight why we need to be addressing that niche in our community. So to go here, and I'm not going to take credit for this, but one of my clients mentioned this term. I think it's a really good term. My client's trying to address a need here that they call the missing middle. Okay? So in 2023, the city of Bowling Green, they had a housing study performed. I know this body has seen, you probably heard that in some of your work sessions. Okay? I want to point out a few things about that housing study that was done last year. It was funded by the city of Bowling Green, but it addressed the needs not only of Bowling Green and also of Warren County. The number one takeaway I have for you about that housing study is that in the next 3 years, the city and the county combined are facing a deficit of almost 7,000 single-family homes. That's not counting multifamily. That's just single family. And when you look in that housing study, what is the most emergent need of the housing sector that we need to address? And there were really some startling statistics that I wasn't aware of. The first one is Bowling Green and Warren County now has a higher percentage of cost-burdened homeowners than the state does. And what that means is people that own homes that basically are that's attributable to a higher percentage of their income than it should be. They're basically house poor because of the housing supply is so poor in Warren County right now. Secondly, Warren County has a higher average of renters than the state average. That fact blew my mind. And so what I'm referring to about the missing middle is we've done a really good job in Warren County and Bowling Green of meeting some needs. We're building a lot of multifamily developments. We're trying to address that need. But according to the housing study, when study was done in 2023, we had less than 100 homes for sale under 200,000. So the question is, how are we going to encourage our citizens to move from the renter to the homeowner? How are we going to do that? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense to expect people to move from renting apartments to a home that's in a $300,000 price point.
So you're saying some of these homes will be less than 200?
That are close to 200 as we can get them, okay? Specifically, even if you look at, again, we're talking minimums today, okay? My client's not going to come in and build every home to the minimum. There's going to be a range of homes, but their target price point here is between $215,000 and $285,000, okay? And to do that, we can't have medium square footage of 1,700. It's physically impossible. Brick alone to these smaller homes, you're talking about an additional cost of $20,000 a home, just for that one material. Square footage is an exponential growth, obviously, when you talk about that. So going back to the home study, a few more facts I want to point out. And I'm not going to take credit for this, because this actually came from Ben. He doesn't know I have this. He's wondering, what have I got? This is in the housing study. This also blew my mind. This is the 30 most common occupations in Warren County and what kind of home they can afford at the median price point. Look at that far right-hand column. This is the missing middle we have to address somehow. If we want to encourage home ownership, these are your most common occupations in Warren County. These homes, the median price they can afford range from $68,000 to about $230,000. Even with my client's proposition, I'm going to submit to you, they're not addressing the lower end of that. We're trying to address the higher end of it. Where's the need? The extreme need, the high need, the high need. Entry-level homes, actually even lower than what we're proposing, we're basically suggesting this development will provide. Now, I will say this, the attached homes hopefully will address that entry level more so, but our detached structures, we're aiming for that moderate price need that the housing study says is high. That's what this whole development is intended to address. Last thing I'll say is this, or at least on this point, the housing study. Last fact that surprised me. 1/3 of our homeowners in Warren County are less than 44 years of age. That is your entry-level homeowner, and it's 1/3 of our demand. So we either meet that demand by more rental units, or we find a way as a community to try to address and find this price point where we can, where it makes sense. Why I think it makes sense here is in this area, obviously, this is a large tract that we can develop at one time. We're not trying to pigeonhole a different type of a development among other developments that are pre-existing. This development will not attach to any current development. It won't be a drive-through development. It doesn't, as far as compatibility, the homes that Rachel's talked about aren't adjacent to this development. That's one point. Second point, it's going to be developed by one developer that can do it. They can develop their streetscape, they can develop the colors of the homes, and they can do it in a way that makes sense and not hodgepodge. So I don't know if I've addressed everything that y'all want. I know you're going to have a lot of questions about this development. Is it denser than the area? No, it is not. I think I've pointed that out. Are the homes smaller than the current existing median? Yes, they are. But someone smarter than me told me one time, if you keep doing what you've been doing, you'll keep getting what you've been getting. And if what we're doing is passing, improving homes that are the same as the existing homes, we can't address the needs that aren't being currently addressed. That's the goal here. My hope is that you'll see this development with amenities like pools and pavilions and sidewalks and commercial frontage, townhomes, an array of housing types. The staff report talks about that. We are increasing the housing types in the area. That's one of the policies we should be looking for. So again, I'm happy to present this tonight. I think it's something that will definitely fit a need that we have, and I'm happy to answer any questions y'all have.
Thank you, Chris. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Davenport?
Is 1,100 square feet, I'm trying to find where I made a note. Is that going to be the size of all of the detached homes, or is that the minimum?
It's the minimum of the detached, and there will be homes larger than that. In talking with my client today, one thing that's unique, a lot of these homes will be built not as straight spec homes, but by the owners will have input into some of these decisions. So the way they market these properties, they market them a lot of times before the homes are built. So the first home owner has some input if they want to add a bedroom, add this, whatever. But the minimum would be 1,100. There will be homes that will be larger than that, but that will be the minimum in the detached structures. Basically the back portion.
So Chris, would you go back to that elevation that you presented?
The attached or detached?
Those.
Okay.
So I noticed that all the elevations seem to have two-car garages, but we're proposing apparently single-car garages here.
As a minimum.
Right.
Some will have two. And I'd say, you would know this better than I, Commissioner Graham, but I'm assuming that's the, yeah, it looks like a width of a two-car garage to me.
Yeah. And so are you suggesting that the lot size accommodates a two-car garage?
I think it absolutely does.
All right. And so...
It's a RS1D minimum lot, and we do two-car garages on RS1Ds all the time.
Okay. And so is the terrain here relatively flat?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So in the DPC, in one of the DPCs, they indicate they want to do exposed CMU block with no veneer, or they want the option to do split face block, but they also commit to a 6-inch exposed surface on. So just physically, you can't do that with a crawl space, because a crawl space is going to be 32 inches, 4 blocks minimum, unless you're going to just, pile a bunch of dirt up beside it. That's why I asked the question about the slab on grade. All those photos are slab on grade.
You caught my ignorance from my home builder.
That's all right. That's all right.
But all I can accentuate is, at least in my mind, when I hear about block foundations, right, I have in my mind an image of a home that's got this much exposed foundation block, and I think, right or wrong, I think it's very important to point out 6-inch exposure is the maximum here. So, and maybe that goes hand in glove with the slab foundation.
So I think I got one question for staff. Can we enforce that? How do you police that?
It would be after construction. I mean, if we went out there and we found out that the foundation was going in and there were 18 inches of the foundation exposed, then
So we
it's in
could
the
attach that to the
conditions
building permit? Chris, do you mind asking your client, are they slab on grade?
They are. They're telling me they are slab on grade.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So if they're slab on grade, and I get that, they seem to also be asking for, in addition to split face block, just plain block. Did I misread that?
I think that's correct. And I think I've heard from someone, and it may not be this client, at least someone has opined to me that they feel that is actually a stronger foundation than the split-faced. I don't know that. Don't take my word for that, but I think I've heard that somewhere.
Could be. And then the other thing I think I'm wondering about here is, so essentially all of these could be vinyl siding.
Could be. I'll tell you that's not their intention. I can also tell you that I have discussed with my client other developments I've done where we do a minimum here, a minimum there, and that is not their desire, Commissioner Graham. I could have brought with me tonight some studies, some actual reports on how difficult that has become to build out some of the developments with those restrictions, but I didn't do that, so, but that's what they tell me.
So I have a great deal of respect for what they're trying to do. And, you know, the easiest thing for this commission to do is just say, yeah, just give us some houses. We don't care what they look like. But clearly that's not, we're not meeting our obligation, right? And so what we're trying to do, and I think we can take a great deal of pride in the housing stock that you find here in Warren County. It's exceptional. I think it's really good. And one of the reasons for that is we've made you work really hard to get these projects through the process, so to speak. A couple things I would like to see here is some sort of provision to prevent this from being 100% vinyl. Clearly, your client has no intent to do that, and so if they have no intent, can we put that to writing? And then I would also ask for either, if they have a structural affinity for CMU block, then what about a scratch coat on the CMU block? Or let's go straight to a split-face block and just eliminate the CMU block completely. Those are a couple of thoughts for these. And then lastly, would they consider some mix of two-car garages? Clearly, as you stated, they have no intent to build all of these as single-car garages. So could we state that we're not planning on building all two-car garages? What percentage do we plan to build with two-car garages as opposed to single-car garages? Those are just a couple of thoughts from me.
Okay.
And I'm just one vote.
Understood.
I would agree with Mr. Graham on the vinyl. And vinyl's a good product, but what we're trying to look at is 10 to 15 years down the road.
And maybe what we could ask for, and you know, in the past we've asked for maybe a percentage of each of the houses being X. Maybe this time we could ask for a percentage of houses. So instead of trying, like you just said, Chris,
And we've done that a few times.
It's kind of tough to do it that way. So maybe X percentage, 20% of the houses are a brick or a hardy, and not all vinyl.
We've done, in fact, with this client specifically, we've done that. When I referenced earlier the difficulties, that's the circumstance that I was meaning to reference.
Okay. I'm trying to give your client some flexibility. Honestly, you got a tough job. This is a tough one, right? And I don't know if they're paying you any extra, but maybe they should be. I'm trying to give them some flexibility, but I'm also trying to...
I understand, and I'm going to discuss these things with them. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I went through that housing study. I'm just not trying to give it lip service. We did conduct that study, and that study has a lot of support for what I'm arguing this client wants to do. I mean, it's replete through there. And if we say that, you know, we're going to try to build a different price point, well, you either can or you can't. And at some point, you're not building that anymore.
Well,
So,
I agree 100% with you, I know what you're trying to do, and it is a tough thing to do, so maybe that's why if we just did a percentage of the houses, and maybe those are some of the bigger houses they're planning on building, that they can be more of the brick or hardy, and then the smaller houses are of the vinyl, that maybe it's a nice mix that allows us to move forward.
We will talk.
Okay. Before we get anybody from the audience, you all want to talk for just a minute? I would say. Going to the percentage, it's 25%. And then I would leave the blocks along if they're on grade, the blocks. Yeah, I understand. No, I understand. And, you know, I think we leave the hours of operation on, you know, we have to take them back. And then maybe we might say, you know, I don't know about this garage thing. I think I'm trying to get it to do some, just going to some two cars. Yeah. That's kind of the way they've left that. I think.
Yes, sir.
It would be nice, but I don't think, with the density. Yes, sir. I think,
That's a question, you know, as an attorney, you should never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I had
think-
some exposure there.
Chris, what we're talking about is the building materials and a percentage. I think we had kind of left it a percentage of the houses having modern masonry materials, building materials.
Here's what I'm authorized to do by my client. On the foundations, a scratch coat will be applied.
Okay.
They cannot get rid of, they can't go to just split face block, Commissioner Graham, because they actually tell me that doesn't even work, like, that doesn't work with their slope, with their slabs. They won't be using that. So it'll be the other block you mentioned, that it will have to have a scratch coat.
All right.
On the two-car garages, they'll commit that the single-family detached units, no less than 20% of those will have two-car garages.
Okay.
On the vinyl, they have to stick where they are on the materials. So they're not, we're unable to offer a percentage of homes or anything like that. I will say that I think the commission's main concern, I think this came from you, Commissioner Warren, is what these homes look like after 20 years. And I'll tell you, that's exactly why. I hope I'm going the right way. That's why I brought these pictures today. That's how old these homes are. I'd like to tell you why vinyl's better today than it was 20 years ago. My clients tell me that. They tell me the warranty on vinyl is the same as hardy board is. But I'll just rely on these pictures, because these are homes that were constructed 20 years ago that still look like that in the fall of 2024, and per the MLS data I provided you, are still selling 187 to 220.
Are they similar size? Are they 1,000 square feet?
I don't know the exact, now, I'll tell you, I could tell you that. That one's 1,300, 1,200, 1,300, 1,200, 906, 870. So I would say they're very consistent.
Okay.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Davenport.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate your input. And is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or an opposition to this request? Okay. All right, hearing none, commissioners would call for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve.
Let's let him bring up an owner and.
I've got to
Oh,
change it.
that's right. Excuse me.
He's right.
Excuse me.
I need,
Yeah.
who wants to do this of the applicant? Yeah, Mike, come on up. What's that? Oh, no, hope not.
Mike?
Mike Vitale, 1336 Edgewood, Bowling Green, Kentucky. I swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, did you hear the revisions I made to the DPCs that I offered?
I did.
Namely, the scratch coat on the foundations,
I did.
and that no less than 20% of the single-family detached homes shall have a two-car garage.
I did.
Do you agree to that?
Yes,
Will you sign those DPCs when I present them to you?
I will.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ham. Commissioners would call for a motion, please.
Make the motion to approve the zoning map amendment together with and condition upon the general development plan document number 2024-44ZCO, based on the testimonies and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated with its compliance and objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion to include a summary of evidence and testimony presented to witnesses at this public hearings.
Second.
Commissioner Volker?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren?
Yes, sir. The motion is approved. The zone change is approved. 21 days unless in 21 days a request is made for the legislative body to hear this item. Our next item tonight is 2024-45Z County Clark Distributing Company, Incorporated, the applicant, and Nature Parkway Holdings, LLC, the owner, have filed an application to rezone 86.84 acres located at Plano Road at the southwest corner of Plano Road and the William Nature Parkway from ag to light industrial with a general development plan. Rachel?
Thank you, Chair Warren. I think we're going to switch over to our second half of the PowerPoint here. It was a little big tonight, so we split it up. It was getting glitchy on us earlier, so. All right. We had a pre-application meeting back in August for the property you just referenced on Plano Road. And the applicants are proposing to rezone roughly 86 acres from agriculture to light industrial in order to develop the property with a beverage distribution and warehouse center and multiple industrial outparcels, which you can see on the concept plan. This is the current aerial view of the property. The current zoning is agriculture. You can see a small area to the rear or to the west is also located in the floodplain. Current land use is also agriculture, and the future land use map is mixed-use commercial. Here are some photos of the property and of the area. This is looking up Plano Road toward the interchange there. This is looking at the property from Plano Road. And this is looking across the property, or across from the property on Red Rock Road. And then we'll leave the concept plan up for reference. In our review, we did find that the application complies with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process, and we found the application to be generally compatible with the surrounding area. We do have a couple of items for your consideration. The first, looking at page 2, we have noted that a majority of the development area contains a soil type that's classified as prime farmland. And then if you jump to page 4, this property is located within the area of the Plano Road focal point plan. And so one of the policies we evaluated regarding signage PL10, this states that freestanding signage in this section of the Plano Road focal point area should be monument style, limited to a maximum of 8 feet in height with a maximum sign face area of 75 square feet. And in the development plan conditions, the applicants have restricted signage other than wall signs to a single sign for each lot, which shall not exceed 8 feet in height or 75 square feet in sign face area. Such signs shall be monument style. And this restriction would apply to the commercial outparcels, the smaller parcels that are located at the front section of the development. And then the applicants have also allowed for a freestanding sign on any lot exceeding 20 acres to be up to 25 feet in height with a sign face area of 100 square feet. And such signs shall also be monument style. And so we've just noted that based on the proposal, the application partially complies with this policy since development located on property greater than 20 acres would be permitted to have signage in excess of what is recommended by the policy. So those are just the couple of items that we wanted to point out for your consideration. But other than that, our recommendation is for approval pending public hearing testimony and discussion. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for staff?
So Rachel, the signage is because they have, the signage discrepancy, if you will, is because they have multiple parcels there?
It's not because they have multiple parcels, it's just that they've set 2 standards for signage depending on the size of the property. So the policy recommendation on the height and square footage, they've met that for the smaller parcels, which are these located up here toward the front, but they did want to allow an exception for the larger parcel to have a larger sign. And so we just had to note that that portion of what they're planning doesn't technically comply with that policy.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioners, any other questions? The applicant or the representative here, Mr. Davenport.
Thank you, Chair Warren. Chris Davenport, 921 College Street. Again, I swear to tell the truth. I I won't have a lot to add to this, other than I'm excited to be here to present this tonight for the Clark entity. 86 acres, light industrial. The anchor of the development will be the Clark's distributor facility. That's the larger tract you see. Just to speak to the sign comment, that larger sign that we've proposed for Clark is the same as the Wright Implement sign across the street. The other signs, sizes, heights, monument, they're all monument style. The other ones all fit the Plano policy. This one technically doesn't, but I would say that that's mitigated in this case because it's a very large tract, it's further off the road, and basically it's along what I'll call an interstate, which is the Natural Parkway extension. That was really the only comment staff had in the policies. We had 15 in compliance, 2 to debate, and those dealt with the sign. Again, this is subject to the Plano focal point, which you all know is an even higher set of restrictions. It deals with setbacks, deals with building orientation, much more strict in those areas. We've complied with all of those things. What I would point out that, and I'll take any questions you have, but before I do that, I just want to kind of comment on 2 aspects of this. There were a lot of discussions with my client, the planning staff, and the Commonwealth, particularly the Transportation Cabinet, about transportation improvements. So what they're proposing here is a very large industrial, nice boulevard type roadway that's going to be new, maybe not boulevard type, but industrial standards. KYTC wanted a roundabout at the intersection of Plano Road. Originally, the traffic impact study my client got didn't suggest a roundabout, and I think this is I'm just kind of bragging on my client and bragging on ACES here, the engineering firm that did this, because what they did, they all got on the phone. Mr. Plunk with the local office got on the phone, folks in Frankfurt got on the phone, the engineer in Louisville got on the phone. They all talked about this, and basically, my client said, whatever's going to work best, we want to try to do. They didn't really want a roundabout. Roundabouts are expensive. They take up land. They cost a lot to build. But ultimately, the condition you have in front of you says we're going to do a roundabout. I will say, I'll give the Transportation Cabinet some grace. They kind of gave us an out on the back end that they may reconsider that. And basically, what's going to happen in the meantime is we're working with the state to get the funding. So this is, like you've seen with some other roundabouts, whether it's Elrod Road or Shive Lane, these things come about and end up being kind of a public-private venture to try to do what's right and split the cost of it, frankly. So I'm just bragging on my client, bragging on ACES. I think they did a really good job of, instead of coming here and going to guns and saying, I've got a traffic study that says a signal and that's what we're fighting for, they listened to each other and came up with something that we hope is going to work. This will be, obviously, in years to come, this corridor is growing. You are probably aware across the Natcher, the extension of that road that's going in, it's up in here. Our traffic study addressed that. I wasn't even aware of some of that development that's coming. So this area is growing, and my client wants to do this right. This is I don't know if you want to call it Taj Mahal for them, but their visibility here, they're excited because they've got frontage on the Natcher, right? 65's right there. It's something they're really looking forward to. So it's a big time investment on their part. The last thing I'll say is I want to point out one property. This property here is owned by Dr. Harston and his wife. And Commissioner Warren, Dr. Harston said to tell you hello tonight, and I said I would do that.
I wish he didn't have my cell phone.
Well, I can't do anything about that. I've been meeting with Dr. Harston and Mrs. Harston, and some of your conditions have come out of those meetings. My clients agreed to a berm that kind of wraps around the corner of that property. Mr. Harston was very happy to hear that. Dr. Harston was. And then the other thing they've done is, it won't show up on this, here it is. So one of the conditions, this area right here, my client has agreed to dedicate that. Now, nothing's going to be built there, but when this is platted in that area, there will be a right-of-way dedicated for public use. And the purpose of that is, if you look at the Harston property, They are only accessed by Dewey Lake Road. It's a very small road. To develop this property and to develop these properties, to improve Dewey Lake Road would be, that would not be very feasible. So by leaving this dedicated right-of-way, it's going to make the development of these other areas much easier, quicker, much more sense from a traffic standpoint. So along those lines, they did that. I think Dr. Harston was grateful for that, and just again, trying to brag on my client for being a good neighbor with their neighbors. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Thank you, Chris. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Davenport?
Chris, I would commend you and your client. This is a great application, and they've done some things, they did it right. Rather than just come here and fight it out, this is going to be a marquee location for them, and they're aware of that. And I also commend you for working with Dr. Harston, because that improves his property as well. I don't think I have any issues there.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up on what my colleague is saying. A lot of times you don't get this type of cooperation and collaboration. So I just want to echo what you were saying.
I can't do anything my client doesn't authorize me to
Well, the
do.
other
So
commissioners
that's where the gratitude should lie, is
Yeah,
with the client.
Because that's what we like to see in
Yes, sir.
projects like this, is collaboration and working together to try to come to some kind of agreement on making it a great project, and it is.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or opposition to this request? So we got all the Clark people here. Are you all in agreement? Commissioners, would call for a motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditioned upon the general development plan, docket number 2024-45Z County. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 Comprehensive Plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The zone change final action is approved in less than 21 days. A request is made to the legislative body to hear the item. Our next item tonight is 2024-46C County. Adam and Lauren Marley have filed an application to rezone 7.6 acres located at 2205 Rich Pond Rockfield Road from Ag to RE Residential Estate with a general development plan. Amy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, we had a pre-application meeting on October the 8th for the property that you mentioned. The applicants are proposing to rezone from agriculture to residential estate in order to create 4 building lots. Just an aerial for your view. So as I mentioned, the current zoning is agriculture. The current land use is agriculture, and the future land use is low-density residential. There are some photos for your reference there. Put it back on the site plan for your review. Looking down at the bottom of the page, the proposal complies with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. Therefore, staff recommendation is approval, pending public hearing, testimony, and discussion of any of the items in your staff report. That's all we have, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Looks like they're in compliance with everybody, the square footage close to everybody around them and building materials. So, commissioners, any questions? All right. Hearing none, Commissioners would call for a motion, please.
I make the motion to approve the proposed.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, Rick. Is there anyone in the audience tonight, it's getting late, I forgot. Anyone in the audience tonight has opposition or question regarding this request? Thank you, Ben.
I make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and condition upon the general development plan, docket number 2024-46, Z County, based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing. The proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Excuse me, before we, I apologize, ma'am, did you have something you? Okay, excuse me, just Matthew, before we call the roll. Yes, ma'am, your name and address, please?
Laura Price,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Price, your address?
675 Elrod Road.
Yes, ma'am, and you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't hear, she may have said what the square footage was, but I didn't hear it. What is the square footage?
Proposed of 1,700 square feet.
Okay. And the structures are brick or?
Yes, ma'am, it says be constructed with an exterior of vinyl siding, cement siding, stone or brick. At least 60% of the house facade shall be constructed with brick, stone, or cemented siding.
Okay.
So,
I own adjacent property, that's why I was asking.
yes, ma'am. I'm sorry I didn't.
That's okay, I was a little late
Okay.
getting up. Thank you.
Sorry, any other questions?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, sorry about that, Matthew. I didn't. Okay, if you call for a vote, please.
Who seconded?
I did, Amy.
Okay. Commissioner Starks?
Yes.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren?
Yes, the motion is approved. Final action in 21 days unless a request is made for a legislative body to hear the item. Our next item tonight is 2024-47Z County. Jordan and Lindsay Howell have filed an application to rezone 4.46 acres located Old Union Church Road, approximately 900 feet north of the intersection of Old Union Church Road and Matlock Old Union Road, from ag to RE residential estate with a general development plan. Amy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on August the 26th for this property. Again, the applicants are proposing to rezone from agriculture to residential estate in order to create 2 building lots. Here's an aerial for reference. Property is zoned agriculture. Current land use is agriculture. Current land use is vacant. The future land use is agriculture. And we have a couple of photos for you. And back to the concept plan. Again, looking at the bottom of the page, the proposal complies with majority of the criteria assessed in the review process and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. Therefore, staff recommendation is approval, pending public hearing, testimony, and discussion of any items in the staff report. But that's all we have. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Amy. Commissioners, any questions for this request? Hearing none. Is the applicant here? Anything you want to add, Jordan? Anything y'all want? They're not here. Yeah, okay. Yes, sir. If you would state your name and address, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Joel McAfee from 529 Old Union Church Road.
Mr.
And I swear to tell the
McAfee,
truth.
thank you.
Yes, sir. Chair Warren and Commissioners, thanks for letting us be here tonight. I live in the property directly south of this, and I just have a few questions and concerns, as well as, if I'm allowed to, neighboring property owners have sent letters to their widows that weren't able to be here tonight. So if I'd be allowed to read those, I'd like to read those as well.
Tell us what your concerns
Yeah.
are, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. So currently, Our area, our land is zoned agriculture. We have 12 acres. My parents own the 24 acres next to it. We currently farm on the land, and so any zone change to residential nearby, I'd be concerned about future concerns, future developments that might lend to, if it's residential, would that lend to multiple lands, developments, multiple home developments beyond just the two? And so in interest of trying to keep the land agriculture and keep our operation without any concerns, I'm concerned, or I guess I have a question, is why would this require a change to residential in order to build two homes, as most of the properties around, including ours, neighboring properties across the road, are currently agriculture as well still?
So why don't we direct that to staff, because
Sure.
it's a question that comes up a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, so I can answer the question about the necessity for the zone change. In our local zoning ordinance, the minimum lot size in the agricultural zoning district is 5 acres. So while the majority of the area is agricultural, in the event that someone wants to subdivide their land, if the resulting acreage would be less than 5 acres, then they have the option to come before this planning commission and request a zone change
Okay.
to reduce the minimum lot area.
Okay. Is there anything that would prevent it from developing into more than 2 lots?
Yes, so in this area, and I believe it's actually, let's see here. Yes, so the county fire protection requirements set in place a minimum fire flow and pressure for residential development. There are a handful of exemptions from that. Under the ordinance, property owner, if their land has existed in the same configuration since 2001, they're allowed up to 2 lots that are exempt from meeting that requirement. So in this area, this particular property would be exempt. The minimum fire protection requirements are not met, but no further subdivision would be permitted, at least of this property, because of the fire protection requirements.
Sure. Okay.
So similarly, surrounding properties would be subject to those same fire protection requirements. And it could be that they may have a 2-lot exception if it's under 10 acres. But in general, that would, in this area, unless there were upgrades to the infrastructure, would in general limit the number of lots that
Okay.
you could have.
Thank you. That helps with that, and I haven't had a chance to meet Mr. Howell, but we obviously, in the neighborhood, welcome new homes being built, especially homes that are going to make good neighbors, and so that's what we're interested in, so we don't want to create trouble. But I do want to mention some concerns. I've been in the neighborhood for 10-plus years. I lived up the road for 6, 7 years and moved into the home currently next to this property about 4 years ago, and I believe it was spring of 2021. There's a pretty major rain that caused some flooding in the branch that flows in the south part or the north part of our property directly towards that property. And so just wanted to mention a concern. I noticed on the survey that it said it was not in a flood zone or a hazardous flood zone, but from what I've seen, the land, it's basically the structure of the land is a giant bowl, 4.5 acres. Right in the middle of it, there's a big sinkhole that's been filled. My concern would be that in that rain I've seen in the last 3 years, I saw water that was likely high enough to fill in part of that bowl for a temporary period of time. So it's a concern I wanted to mention, as well as the concern of any of our waters flowing towards that land, if anything would obstruct that and cause it to flow upstream. It doesn't appear to be a development that would be wise to build down low where that is, but something I wanted to bring up to the concern of this committee. And then, check my notes. I believe that's it for my concerns. Are you allowed to share neighboring letters, or should I hand those over?
Yes, if you'll hand that to me, we'll circulate that to the commission. Now, understand that because this is hearsay.
Sure.
And no one has the opportunity to ask questions of the writers of these.
Yes, sir.
Like they do other witnesses. The commission will give it probably a different level of response than they would than if Ms. Miller and Ms. Lindley had been here in person.
I understand, and I appreciate that, and I know they appreciate you taking those letters. And again, our major concern as the neighborhood is that there'd be more than 2 homes potentially built just because of the residential change. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, Hamp, do we need to review these letters or just take them as evidence?
they'll be in the record as evidence.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Joel. Appreciate you being here tonight. Is there anyone else in the audience tonight has a question regarding this proposal? Yes, sir.
I'm Jordan Howe. I'm the owner.
Wondered where you were.
I'm in the back.
Jordan,
Out of
what's
sleep.
your address?
3635 Claypool Boyce Road.
Swear to tell the truth.
Yes, sir. Pretty straightforward, just taking one 4.5 plus or minus acre lot, splitting it in half. I've looked at it with the engineers. They say there's plenty of places to build a home. I understand we want to maintain the spirit and community. I myself have a vested interest in that immediate area, as well as my family. So the homes will be a minimum of 1,850 square feet. We've actually gone beyond what the Hayes heirs put as far as any of the conditions on the size and the building materials, as well as the setback. So trying to keep the community, as well as when we talked about the Paragon MLS earlier, these homes, just based on the current cost of construction, will far exceed the median prices of anything sold in the last 7 years.
All right. Thank you, Jordan. Any other questions, commissioners, before we call for a motion, please? Matthew?
I make a you ready to call for motion?
Yeah, a motion. Yeah, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I make a motion to approve the zoning map amendment together with the condition upon the general development plan docket number 2024-47ZCO. Based on the testimony and document presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the docket focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request this motion to include a summary of evidence and testimonies presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Volker?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren?
Yes, sir. The motion is approved. Final action, in less than 21 days, a request is made for the legislative body to hear the item. Next item is 2024-48ZBG and 2024-V22 JRAE Holdings LLC, care of Jennifer Sharber, has filed an application to rezone .24 acres located at 1263 Magnolia Street from RM3 Townhouse Multifamily Residential to general business with a general development plan. The applicant has also filed a concurrent variance application requesting 4 variances, 2-foot variance from the 5-foot setback on the northeast side, 4-foot variance from the 5-foot side setback on the southwest side, a 39-foot variance from the required 40-foot setback along the southwest side when located adjacent to a single-family residential use, and a 9-foot variance from the 10-foot incompatible land use buffer along the southwest side.
Thank you, Chair Warren. We had a pre-application meeting back in October for this property at 1263 Magnolia Street. And there are dual applications tonight. The first for your consideration is a rezoning request to general business in order to convert the existing residence into an office space. And then they're also proposing to construct an accessory apartment to the rear, which is the building shown in blue. The existing structure is the structure shown in orange. And then, as you mentioned, the applicant has also filed a concurrent application for various variances. And this is the aerial view of the property. We can see the current zoning is RM3. Current land use is single family. And then the future land use map is mixed use residential. And here are some photos of the property. This is the back side of the property looking from the alley. And then I'll leave the concept up here for reference. In our review, we did find that the proposal complies with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process, and that the proposal may be compatible with the surrounding area. We have a couple of considerations relating to the proposed building setback adjacent to the single-family residential use and the required incompatible land use buffer. That's detailed on page 2 under the layout, lot sizes, and setbacks. And we've just noted that the setbacks will adhere to the general business standards set forth in the zoning ordinance, except for the 5-foot side yard setback along the southwestern property line and northeastern property line, and then the 25-foot building setback adjacent to a single-family residential use, and the 10-foot incompatible land use buffer, and those are the items for which the applicant has requested variances. You can see those variances called out on the concept plan, and the applicant's also proposing to construct a privacy fence, which is shown in that red dashed line along the perimeter areas as well. And then last, I will call your attention to the variance findings on page 6, and we've just noted, get to that page. So the variance findings are there for your reference. Those are outlined in KRS 100.243. And if you go about midway down, the italicized text is the information that was supplied by the applicants. That was what they provided in order to address those findings, and so you all should consider if they have adequately addressed those findings that are required for granting the variance. With that, I think that is all I have for the staff report. Our staff recommendation is for approval, pending public hearing testimony and discussion. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Rachel, you said this is currently RM3?
Yes.
Was this part of that group that we kind of cleaned up after the tornado?
This is on the west side of Broadway. If we go back to the land use map, so this is the zoning, and then the zoning, if you look at that in conjunction with the current land use map, it kind of speaks to why the future land use map might be mixed-use residential, because we truly do have a mix of uses in this section of Magnolia.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Commissioners, any other questions? Is the applicant here or anything they would like to add to this? Anything you'd like to add? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has opposition to this request? All right. Hearing none, Commissioners, we will call for 2 motions, one the approval and then the variance.
I make the motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with and conditioned upon the general development plan, docket number 2024-48ZBG. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include the summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. Next, we call for a motion, excuse me, on the variances.
I make the motion to approve the request for the variances presented in the staff report for the property at 1263 Magnolia Street, docket number 2024-322. The testimony presented in this public hearing has shown that the granting of this variance would not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, will not cause a hazard or a nuisance to the public, and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations.
Second.
Commissioner Starks,
Yes.
Commissioner Vitale,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Graham,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes, sir.
Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The zone change is final action in less than 21 days. There's a request made to the legislative body to hear the item. The Planning Commission, final action on the variance. Our last item tonight is 2024-49Z County J. Allen Builders, LLC, care of Jody Allen, has filed an application for zone 7.55 acres located on Mount Olivet Road, approximately 445 feet southeast of North Ridge Drive, across from the intersection of Mount Olive Road and Sandalwood Drive, from RS1C Single Family Residential to RS1B Single Family Residential with the General Development Plan. Amy?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a pre-application meeting on September the 18th. Again, the applicants are proposing to rezone from RS1C, which is single-family residential, to RS1B, also single-family residential, in order to develop the property with 13 twin homes containing a total of 26 attached single-family dwelling units. Here's an aerial for your review. The current zoning is RS1C. Current land use is agriculture, and the future land use is moderate density residential. There's a couple of photos for your review, and back to the site plan. If we look at the bottom of the page, staff has noted considerations regarding loss of prime farmland and architectural variety among residences. So if we look on page 2, midway through the page, the prime farmland, about 50% of the area proposed to be rezoned is classified as prime farmland. If we look at the very bottom, under the surrounding architectural features, existing residential structures in North Ridge are detached single-family residential structures. Each residence has a unique architectural character and utilizes varying colors and materials. The proposed DPCs number 3 and number 5 require that each twin home contain a minimum of 1,100 square feet per unit, in addition to a minimum one-car attached garage per unit. Staff suggested that the applicant addresses architectural variety among the proposed residences. However, this was left unaddressed. Looking back at page 1, the proposal does comply with the majority of the criteria assessed in the review process and is generally compatible with the surrounding area. Therefore, staff recommendation is approval pending public hearing and testimony and discussion of any of the polling. That's all we have for our staff report. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Amy. Commissioners, any questions for staff? All right. Is the applicant here, or anything you would like to add, Mr. Allen?
Yes, sir. Sorry. My address?
Your name?
Joseph Allen.
Address?
33 Bowline Alley, Santa Rosa Beach, Florida.
Yeah, it's where tell to, Jody.
I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
So Jody, so you're going to do split face block on the foundations? Is that what you're planning?
Yes. Yeah, these will be crawl space.
They'll be crawl space?
Yes, have to
Okay.
be. Don't have to be, but
Right.
need to be.
Right, got it,
Yes.
okay. And,
So, we used and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, we used the exact same design features that are in North Ridge.
For this?
For these units.
got it, okay.
Yes.
All right, very good. Then I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Any other questions, Commissioners? Thank you, Jody. Is there anyone in the audience tonight that has a question or opposition to this request? Okay. Hearing none, Commissioners, call for a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the proposed zoning map amendment together with condition upon the general development plan, docket number 2024-49Z County. Based upon the testimony and documents presented in this public hearing, the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the adopted Focus 2030 comprehensive plan as demonstrated by its compliance with the objectives and action items presented in the staff report. Therefore, the proposed zoning map amendment is in agreement with the adopted comprehensive plan. Further, I request that this motion include a summary of evidence and testimony presented by the witnesses at this public hearing.
Second. Commissioner Graham?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Starks?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Vitale?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Volker?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Drain?
Yes, sir.
And Chair Warren.
Yes, sir. The motion is approved. Final action in less than 21 days. A request is made to the legislative body to hear this item. Ben, any other?
Yeah, the only thing I'll just mention is that we still have the public input mechanism still open on our website for the 2050 transportation plan. So if you haven't went on there and taken the survey, which is going to help us develop our goals and objectives, and then also the interactive map where you can put all your pain points if you want to. Just tell us where congestion is, tell us where you see issues in the transportation system. And you can also, anybody that's already put something on that map, you can vote it up or down or make comments. So that'll be active till at least Thanksgiving. And then we also have our meetings coming up. I believe it's November 14th, 19th. Rachel's looking that up right now. November 19th. There'll be two happening at the same time from 5 to 7 p.m. One will be at the Barren River Area Development District office. The other will be at the Buchanan Park Tennis Facility. Again, simultaneously happen at the same time. So there'll be in-person public input opportunities as well. So just wanted to mention that.
Then our next meeting will be 2 weeks from tonight.
Yep.
Okay, about 5 items? Okay. All right, Commissioners, thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate your time. Staff, appreciate all you do. And Mr. Moore, thank you for keeping us in line.
Thanks for letting me be here.